Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers and listeners, Assalamu alaikum. Today's question is related to my previous question that we discussed earlier, and the question was that who will go into paradise, whether Muslims, Christians, or the Jews. Now, of course, the related question that I'm going to discuss today is that who will have a higher status in the paradise, again, whether Muslims, Christians, or the Jews. As we know that followers of these three Abrahamic faiths have their own arguments to claim that they will have a higher status in the paradise. But anyway, we need to look into the glorious Quran to find out the truth. But before I proceed further, those of you who may be interested in the written contents of my monologues, they can always visit my website www.quranwisdom.com, and under Q&A section you will find written contents of all my monologues in question answer format. Verses 7 to 10 of chapter 56 of the glorious Quran informs mankind that on the judgment day, Allah Almighty is going to divide the whole mankind into three distinct groups or classes. These verses read, "And you become three classes. Those on the right, what of those on the right? And those on the left, what of those on the left? And those foremost will be foremost." So these verses clearly inform us that regardless of somebody's nomenclature in this world, on the judgment day, Allah Almighty is going to divide the whole mankind into three groups or classes. And of course, from this verse, we can get the implication that the class that is declared as the foremost and the class that is declared as on the right side will of course definitely go to paradise, while the class that is declared as on the left side will go to or will be destined for hell. Now, in order to see that which follower of three Abrahamic faith will fall into the foremost class or the right class or the left class, we have to further read the relevant verses of the glorious Quran from chapter 56. So the question that who will fall in these three classes is also provided in the glorious Quran. For example, with reference to the foremost class or the leading class, verses 11 to 16 of chapter 56 read, "The people on the foremost, that is, those are the nearest." Of course, they are nearest to, or they will be nearest to, Allah Almighty because of their good deeds and special mercy that has been conferred upon them from Allah Almighty. "In the gardens of bliss," of course, that is paradise, "many from the earlier generations and a small band from the later generations." So it means the foremost class will be constituted or will be based on two segments of people, and this will include many from earlier generations, whereas a small band from the later generations. So implying that who are earlier generations? These are the people who were born during the lives of various messengers that Allah Almighty sent from time to time. And since they happen to be contemporaries of messengers or prophets of Allah Almighty, so it is logical that many of them were, strong believers in their faith. They were strictly following the practices of the messengers in letter and spirit, and they had the advantage since messengers were present amongst them, so they could provide them guidance as and when it is required. So logically, they had an advantage, and because of that advantage, majority of them will fall into, or rather many of them will fall into the foremost class. On the contrary, for later people generations, of course, since prophets are not present in that class, for example, our current time, there is no prophet around. So what we can do is that some of us may be strong believers in their faith, whether somebody is a Muslim, Jew, or Christian, but large number of people, because of the absence of messenger and their less interest in the religion and in the religious scripture, are not strict followers of their faith. So logically speaking, majority of the people of the contemporary world or the later generation, that is generation after passing of each messenger or prophet, would not qualify to be in the foremost class. Of course, this is logical because of the fact that people who were the contemporaries of the Prophet or from earlier generations, they had to undergo more ordeals, more tests of life, and the sacrifices that they made, they were, really much greater when compared with the persons who fall in the later generations. And what would be their reward? The foremost people on luxurious furnishings, reclining on them, facing one another. And of course, then these verses continue that what additional rewards they will find, but they will receive. But the most important thing is that they will be nearest to Allah Almighty. This would indeed be the greatest reward. Because other things that are mentioned in the glorious Quran relating to the quality of life in paradise, and of course what type of items would be available as food, the clothing, etc., these appear to be material from human perspective. But nearness to God will have real spiritual element in it. And of course, the foremost people will be nearest to Allah Almighty. This is the point that we need to keep in mind. And majority of the people that would fall in the foremost category would be from earlier generations and not from later generations. From later generations, it would only be a small band, as the glorious Quran declares. Now, regarding rewards for people on the right, and of course their classification between earlier and later generations, the glorious Quran in verses 27 to 32 and verses 38 to 40 of chapter 56 highlight the following fact. First, I'm going to read verses 27 to 32. And those on the right, what of those on the right? In lush orchards and sweet-smelling plants and extended shade and outpouring water and abundant fruit. So these are the rewards that are mentioned for people on the right side. And regarding who will be on the right side? For those on the right, many from the past, that is earlier generations, and many from the later generations. So it means in this category, that is people on the right, of course, they would be blissful people and they would enjoy a good life in paradise, full of rewards and everything. Of course, their status when compared with the foremost people will be on the lower side, but still they will enjoy a blissful life in paradise. And there would be many people from the past and many people from later generations. So it means, again, this appears to be logical because we know that even during the lifetime of various messengers and prophets, there were a certain group of people who were not staunch believers, or they would just, follow the fundamentals of faith, but they would not really go to an extent that was achieved by people on the foremost side. Similarly, in later time periods, for example, when there is no prophet around and people have to simply follow the scriptures, there are many people who at least follow the fundamentals of their faith, that is these three Abrahamic faiths. And of course, this appears to be logical that when it comes to people on the right side, Allah Almighty, out of His mercy, will grant this status to many from the earlier generations and many from the later generations, probably based on the fact that they at least follow the fundamentals of faith. And what those fundamentals of faith are, we have already discussed in the earlier question, and I'm going to highlight them while concluding this monologue. Now, the third category is people on the left. Of course, as we can figure out, that people on the left are the sinners, they are the disbelievers, and they may be from any faith, whether they declare themselves as Muslims in this world or as Christians or Jews. Allah Almighty is not going to judge them based on their nomenclature, worldly nomenclature. In fact, human beings will be judged based on their deeds, their intentions, and of course, the mercy shown by Allah Almighty to individuals. So what would be the fate of people on the left? The relevant verses are verses 41 to 47 of chapter 56, the same chapter that I'm quoting. And those on the left, what of those on the left? Amid searing wind and boiling water, punishment, and a shadow of thick smoke. There'll be no tree, thick smoke, neither cool nor refreshing, uneasiness. They had lived before that in luxury, because in the worldly life, they enjoyed a luxurious life. And they used to persist in immense wrongdoing. So they were great sinners, immense wrongdoing, great sinners. And they used to say, when we are dead and turn into dust and bones, are we to be resurrected? Now, this is very important. So, if we just look into the essence of these verses, there are two clear messages. One message is that people will fall in the left category. They may belong to, or they may enjoy any nomenclature in this world. We are not interested in it. But who these people are? They would be enjoying a luxurious life in this world. This is a common sense, observation that when you indulge in luxuries of life, then of course Satan, he keeps on pushing you into that luxurious life, and you forget Allah Almighty. For example, you have amassed a lot of wealth, so you would be, very miser in spending that wealth in the cause of Allah. You're enjoying other facilities of life, so probably you are not paying attention to the rituals like Salah, for example, paying zakat, or for example, observing fast, etc., etc. At the same time, you may be looking toward other people with an eye of contempt, because you believe that because of your wealth, because of your luxury lifestyle, you are superior to them. And a time may come that many such people may even think that probably these scriptures and whatever is narrated in the scriptures are stories. These are mere stories, and after our death, there is no resurrection. So this life is all about, so let's enjoy it. So this is very important. So anyone who has this type of belief, who's enjoying a luxurious life, and based on that luxurious life, he's indulged in this world to an extent where he forgets the message of the scriptures and message of the messengers, then of course he or she is bound to be thrown into the hellfire on the judgment day. This is the message of the glorious Quran. Now, what conclusion can be drawn from these verses of chapter 56 of the glorious Quran? The conclusion is that on the judgment day, there will be three distinct classes of mankind. Foremost, on the right side, on the left side. Left side would be sinners, they will be destined to hell, whereas people on the right side and the foremost will enjoy a blissful life in the paradise. But however, the foremost people will be nearest to Allah Almighty. And of course, that would be the greatest spiritual reward that may be desired by any prudent believer who believes in one God on the judgment day, and who strives to do right deeds, that is good deeds, and strives to avoid bad deeds. So we can conclude that whether somebody declares himself to be a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew, this declaration is not sufficient to determine his or her status in paradise or on the judgment day. Everything is dependent upon the deeds of individuals, and of course the mercy shown by Allah Almighty on the judgment day. So I conclude my today's monologue with a prayer that Allah Almighty may bless this effort and enable us to apply reason and seek guidance only from the glorious Quran. Please do subscribe and share my channel to promote teachings of the glorious Quran. May Allah Almighty reward your effort. Amen. Thank you for watching.